It's Pete for Cheap Homesteading, and I'm in my garage today, and I'm working on my x495 John Deere. The front right tire all last year was going down. I had to pump it up, and they have tubeless tires on the front, but I think I'm going to throw a tube in it. I'll make sure there's no nail stuck in it, and then I'll just throw a tube in it, and then we'll be done with it. So let's go. This was my dad's old John Deere lawn tractor, and the tire is definitely flat. It's only flat on the bottom though. The top looks great. Okay, so now we're going to take off the tire. Okay, so that's a 15 mil socket. My goodness, John Deere went to the dark side for sure. Look at that, that's easy. Should get a jack stand though. I'll be back. Okay. I don't see anything physically stuck out of it. We have these hawthorns around my property. It's great to have them around because they have those little tiny fruit and everything to make jams out of and everything. But a hawthorn will just go right through one of these tires like there's no tomorrow. I don't see any sticking out this way, but we're going to take her apart. Okay, so now it gets really stuck around here, like it's stuck on there hard. So you can either use a tire sledge, and what it means is you hit here till it pounds off. But an easier way I've found is I try it with the vise. If your vise opens wide enough so you can clamp it together and pull it off. But we're going to remove the valve stem. Can't find the little valve stem remover, but since we're not going to use this anymore, we're going to redneck it. There we go. So let's see if this vise opens wide enough. These are a little bit bigger than I normally put in the vise. Look at that. Okay, we'll move it around a little bit more and then try to get another bite and do the same thing, and hopefully it'll just ride itself off. So I'm going to try to get it. This is another bite. I started here with the vise. You have to be able to work it off the bead. And it is off. That is awesome. Oh, goodness. Okay, so now you got the tire broken off the rim, at least on one side. The side you're going to pull it off, and it has to be the side with the valve stem. Okay, so then you get your screwdriver, and you push down on the tire so it fits farther in the rim here, and you pry up. And then you get another screwdriver, and you go a little bit farther, and you pry up. You pull this one out, and keep going until you have it off. And for this step, I find it easier to put it on the ground. Okay, so now you got to make sure that there's no nail or hawthorn or anything sticking through the tire. And the only way to really do that, and you got to be careful, don't just stick your hand in there willy-nilly and end up getting cut your hand or anything like that. So you got to make sure you go all the way around the tire. And physically feel if there's anything on the face or on the side wall that would puncture the tube. And this feels good. There's nothing in there. So now I'm going to go get the tube. We're going to throw it in this thing. Now you're probably thinking, why don't you just take it off the other sidewall? Well, these tires, if you're doing them at home, they're kind of difficult because there is no step down here. It's going to be a fight the whole way back down the rim, and I find it's not worth it. I'd rather just try to give it a little bit of arm power and try to get it in there than have to try to break the bead on the other side. If your rim does have a drop on this side, it's not so bad. You only have to go that far, it's off. But if you have to go any farther than that, it just becomes a lesson in futility. Okay, so we're going to go get the tube. Okay, so there we go. Look at that, it's a fine tube. It's made in Vietnam. All good tubes are made in Vietnam, I guess. Okay, you have to be careful when you are putting these tubes in that you do not pinch the tube against the rim, and when you are prying the tire on, that your screwdrivers don't pinch the tube. Very important. Okay, so I like to put the actual valve stem hole closer to me. You set the tube in. You have to have a rough idea where this is. You don't want to be twisting the tube or anything like that, like around. So you know it's going to sit like this inside. So now we have a little bit of just plain muscle. So I'm prying this. We put our tube down in. And we fish it through the hole. Okay, so now there is valve stem holders, but if you're doing this at home, you are not going to have a valve stem holder. So we are going to do this the way someone would do it at home. So you put vice grips. You put vice grips onto the valve stem, not enough to crush it, but enough to make sure that it doesn't fall back into the rim when you're trying to fish it around. And you keep going around the tube. You pull. So it's just basically brute force to get it in and around. Just keep going till it's fully over. And then it's really important to make sure that it feels like it's sitting pretty much like you had it sitting on the outside of the tire. Okay, so I like having the valve stem pretty much pointing towards me because I find you have less chance of pinching the tube. So what we do is I fish, you put your knee here, and I do find it a lot easier to do it on the ground. Okay, so now you don't stick the screwdriver in far, because you got to be mindful that this could pinch the tube. And then you keep going. You get another bite. And you keep going. And keep pushing down. Oh, see that? Okay, we keep going, we're getting it. We're almost there. There you go. So now you look, you don't see the tube caught in between the tire and the rim. So now we're going to get the compressor all fired up. Okay, so make sure you're very careful at that stage when you're trying to put the tire on the rim, because nothing worse than pinching the tube. And another thing is, make sure you don't let that valve stem drop down into the tire, because if you get it half inflated and the valve stem drops down into the tire, you pretty well have to pop the tube to get it off again, because you can't take the air out of the tube. So we're going to pump this up. Okay, so let's see. And be careful you don't just pump like crazy amounts of air into it. And the air coming out around the valve stem doesn't mean that you have a leak yet. Because this is a tubeless tire. There's nowhere for the air to go between the rim, the tire, and the tube. So it's got to come out somewhere. Eventually it should stop. We should check what is the where's my tire gauge? I lost my tire gauge already. Okay, so eventually the air stops, and I put my front tires to about 24. That's about what I do. But always look on your manual. But whatever you do, don't like put 100 pounds into the sucker and blow the tire up and hurt yourself. A little bit more. Okay, a little bit too much. There we go, right on the money. Okay, so all the air that was coming around the valve stem has stopped, and it's all pumped up. It's ready to put it back on. Okay, so there you go. Like, that would have costed you minimum $50, but if you live in a really major city, it would have been about closer to $100 with tax, just to put a tube in. And it doesn't take a whole lot of mechanical ability to do that. It's all those little things that can save you money. And there is a lot of things you can do. If you're not too mechanical, you probably shouldn't rebuild an engine or something like that. You can always learn though. But there's a lot of things you can do, little things that could save you a lot of money. So you guys have a good one. This job is done.